Hi, this is Josh Shrier, and I want to welcome you to this episode of the Next Level Podcast, where we deal with issues of mindset, time management, efficiency, productivity, discipline, and everything in between. This episode is brought to you by Alpha Dad. Alpha Dad is a 6 week course by one of my good friends, John Shrier, and if you're a middle-aged man looking to get in better shape mentally, physically, and emotionally, then you found this place. AlphaDadTransformation.com. Again, it's a 6 week course that goes into every aspect of your mental, physical, and emotional health, teaching you how to get back into health with good exercise, good mindset, good eating habits, in a practical, doable way over 6 weeks. The course is 100% online, do it at your own speed, and that just go to alfredadtransformation.com and tell them that Josh Schreier sent you. Now, on to the episode. Since this is the first episode of this podcast, I want to introduce myself a little bit so you know over this next long while, hopefully, if you listen, who you be listening to. Before we start, remember that to subscribe to this channel, to comment, and to leave a review. So telling you a little about myself that's relevant for our purposes today. So I was born in Silicon Valley, California in 1980. At this time I was recording, I'm 44. 1980, if you all know, anyone old enough to watching this remember this, is before cell phones, before internet, before cable television for the most part. But now we live in a world much different than that. And so I got into computers and eventually consulting. You'll hear how it goes in a second in an interesting way. My father sold computers when I was young, when I was just in elementary school, 9, 10, 11 years old. He sold used Apple computers when home computers just became popular in the late 80s, early 90s, and was actually very successful at it. But when Apple collapsed in, I think, in 1993, 1994, he left the business because the stock cratered and the computers were in a very difficult place before the late Steve Jobs left the company. Before returning triumphantly for the iPhone years later. And what's it called? And the iPod and iPad and all these eyes. But anyway, so I got into computers very young and I was in software development as a kid when I was 13, 14 years old. For those who are sports fans, doing fantasy leagues where you manage statistics of all these athletes and people who sign up for different teams and it's a whole game, whatever. So I wrote a very complex application to run a big fantasy league among friends of ours. I kept track of sports betting, even though we weren't betting money, but my friends and I would keep track of sports scores and football and things like that, specifically during football season. And I was very interested in it. But my real passion at the time was to be a sports broadcaster, high and deep to left field, it's gone. Hey. That's what I wanted to do my whole life. From the time I was probably 8 or 9 years old till the time I was in college. My sophomore year of college, my college professor at that year, I don't even remember his name, unfortunately, anymore. But because he changed my life for the bad or the good, depending on your perspective in a second. So I was the editor of my school newspaper that year, and he said, he was teaching me and some of the editors about how to get a front page story, how to find one. So he told me about this story when he was in Sacramento, which is a small town about 70, 75 miles north of San Francisco. And there was a local, unfortunately, KKK Nazi type organization. And the newspaper reporter found out that the head of this group, this terrible group, was Jewish. Obviously, a self-hating Jew. That's not for now, but that's what happened. So I asked him, the professor, so what happened? He said, well, they uncovered it and they went to the guy and confronted him. He said, we're going to tell everyone that you're the Jew who's running the Nazi organization. Well, he says, well, if you do that, the only chance I have is I'm going to have to kill myself or they'll kill me, one or the other. But I'm not going to just these aren't like nice people. They're not going to take this nicely. So I asked the professor, so what did they do? Did they publish the story? I was a little bit shocked and I said, what did the guy do? Said to his word, he killed himself the next day, like he said. And I asked him what was accomplished by this whole terrible story. He said it was a good front page story. And that's what we have to learn about front page stories, that sometimes the juice is, is there. And I was so horrified by the story on the spot. I think it was the end of the semester, towards the end of the semester, but at the end of the semester, I left university altogether, and started working in computers with my dad. At the time, we were in a fairly successful computer business. I think it was called Think Outside the Box at that time. And we had some big clients. It was a lot of fun. Even though I was only the computer guy, the young 19-year-old computer guy, but since I was the one who was the point man for the customer to actually teach them the software and the training, I got to do a lot of business consulting accidentally, sort of at 19, 20 years old with some very large companies and work with them on very high-end issues and got a lot of behind the scenes experience of what is involved in running businesses as a CEO. Again, I was only 19, 20 years old and a little, little little teenage kid, if you call him little. Um, but that was a very successful period. Unfortunately, that partnership between my father and I didn't last very long because in November 2000, my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And very sadly, unfortunately, 4 months later, in March of 2001, she passed away. But that led me down an interesting path because my father and I had a massive falling out. Not for now, it's not a story for the public. We had massive falling out. And I ended up spending a lot of time with my cousins in a university not so far from that original story of Sacramento was. It's actually a place called University of California, Davis, which is again about 70 miles north of San Francisco, approximately. And in that process of between 2000 and 2003, I became a religious Orthodox Jew and went to study in Israel for about 2 years. I got married, had three wonderful boys, and most of the 18 years I've been here in Israel, as we speak, I've been doing various aspects of business, either software development still, just to keep things going, but my passion really has been helping people. And specifically, again, I'm not an expert in making money, in running, getting customers, all that stuff. My expertise in time management and efficiency and discipline and consistency and being happy and you're having your mind controlled so you know what you're doing so you're not completely flooded all over the place like a lot of entrepreneurs are. So that's basically my 44 years and how long that was, 5, 6 minutes. So I just want to give you an introduction to who I am. In the future, we're not going to be talking about this. We're talking about interesting business topics from how to increase your sales, your marketing, online marketing, social media, mindset, time management, efficiency, discipline, all these things we discuss. Even outsourcing, we'll go into detail on all of these things. You have found your place for the All Around Business Knowledge podcast. This is the Next Level Podcast, episode number 1. This is Josh Shrier signing off. We'll see you next time. Bye.